Okay, it is time to wrap this up. I'll echo what Paul said, which is it's about having the right team. And the last topic we want to touch on is briefly, what does this mean for INSEAD? Obviously, as things shift, we have to think about how do we also change what and how we educate. So I'd invite Pavel and Theos, please join me up on stage. And wrestle a mic. And if you could wrestle the clicker away from Malika, that'd be great. All right, thank you. And there's at least one mic here. Grab a mic if you could. We're good. All right, they are armed and dangerous. And here we go. So this is going to, so we'll start with Pavel. So we're going to have one talented professor that we just hired, and one that, with great prescient, we hired over a decade ago, a top machine learning expert before anyone knew it would be in. But let's start with you, Pavel. So, sorry, wrong page. Anyway, Pavel is joining us this year, right? Make sure I give full credit to your education. So, doctorate in business administration from HBS, sorry. A master,
may not be too different, right?
A master's in statistics from Yale and an earlier degree in business mathematics and statistics from LSE. And again, one of the first things we've asked you to do is launch a new MBA elective on AI strategy for startups and C-suites. Tell us a bit about your thoughts on all this.
So thank you for the introduction, Peter. And as Peter mentioned, my name is Pavel Kireyev, and I'm responsible for this new course at INSEAD. It's an MBA course, an MBA elective on artificial intelligence strategy. And I'm also teaching a PhD course on advanced multivariate statistics for the students there as well. So I'm well equipped for this with my PhD in BS. But yeah, so I understand that in the audience there are MBA students, prospective MBA students, and perhaps even executives, engineers, startuppers, who are interested in opportunities to collaborate on case studies or research that we can actually turn into case studies for courses such as this one. So in the next few minutes, I'll take some time to describe what we envision for this MBA course on artificial intelligence strategy. And so the objective of the course is to make a connection between the engineering and research and technology and artificial intelligence and real business applications and real business impact. We'll do this by exploring cases across a variety of industries, ranging from manufacturing to online media to e-commerce, across a variety of companies ranging from startups to big technology companies to very traditional companies to new companies, and develop a lens for analyzing AI initiatives and understanding how to find real opportunities for this new emerging technology. Yeah, so on the slide, we actually see different names of different companies that we'll discuss, and the cases will be cases written together with these companies. And occasionally, we'll also mention some research that was done at these companies together with some academic researchers. So in this course, we'll focus on 4 key pillars. The first is the objective, determining what is the problem that we actually need to solve. What is the right problem? What is the right objective that we want to maximize? The second one is data. How do we develop a strategy for collecting data, for aggregating data, or perhaps not aggregating it, and for generating data in the future such that machine learning algorithms can improve? Then there's the algorithm. Here we peek inside the black box of machine learning algorithms and analyze from a conceptual level, some of these modern tools like deep networks, generative models, reinforcement learning, and what their applications are in areas such as human resources, hiring, and screening for human intelligence. And then finally, the final pillar is judgment. And here we think about what is the division of labor between humans and algorithms inside of an organization, and how can an executive in charge of a company that's very heavy on algorithms, that's driven by algorithms, about managing risk and managing expectations related to these algorithms. So in these cases, examples will come from areas such as self-driving, and also from areas such as dynamic pricing and inventory management. Now, we won't only consider things that companies have tried in the past, but we'll also attempt to look a little bit into the future and talk about research that is maybe not immediately applicable, but that can have a very high impact in the future. Here we'll consider things such as the applications of machine learning in creative fields, such as new product design, or the infusion of causal reasoning into machine learning systems, understanding about cause and effect, which can move machine learning further from prediction, but actually closer into the domain of judgment and decision making, which has traditionally been reserved for humans. So please reach out if you're interested in finding out more about this course, or if you're interested in collaborations related to case writing, or joint research opportunities ranging from algorithm development to experimentation about the role of AI in an organization.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. Yeah, I guess before I turn to Theos, just to underline something, I think for us as a school, this idea of like curriculum development has always been super powerful, right? You get bright faculty together with students and try and make sense of what's happening is what, you know, the core of how business schools create value. But just as I think about, you know, one of the things we hear about is just as the pace of change gets faster, the question is how do we get better at that and update faster? And I do think a big piece of that is that invitation to you as alumni. It says, how can we collaborate better as with those of you who are really tracking practice, and how can we loop back in and speed our own learning? And I think that's one of those themes, which is even as the machines get faster, how can our systems get faster at learning? Anyway, Theos has been in this space for a long time, 4 degrees from MIT in computer science, was doing machine learning long before it was sexy, and has then also, of course, sat inside a business school running our e-lab and has really seen firsthand this sort of oil and water. How does technology mix with business or not? Curious what you're working on and where you see INSEAD going.
Thank you, Peter. There was a question there, but I guess we'll take questions later. Sorry for this. And first of all, very nice to see many people again. And Francois, I don't see you anymore. Also, very nice to see you. Very nice to see also Jan, Lachelle. I don't see him either, but probably they're outside somewhere. Great to always connect. And as Peter said, it's always nice to connect with alumni and also non-alumni to create, you know, a better world through work together. Now, let me start from, as Peter said, I've been doing machine learning since the 90s. My PhD was actually on machine learning and on computer vision. Part of my PhD was on pedestrian detection in the late 90s in MIT. I was in MIT from 91 to 2000, doing my undergraduate and my PhD there. And when I joined INSEAD in 2000, for a number of years, I would go to machine learning conferences and say I'm in a business school, and they would say, "What's wrong with you?" I would go to business school conference, say I'm doing machine learning, they would say, "What's wrong with you?" And 15 years later, it seems that somehow there's something wrong with both sides. So, anyway, jokes apart, it's great to be at the intersection of the two, and it's obvious that we are seeing a transformation in the business world, but also in the daily and overall world. And now, of course, the question is how can we make better sense of this and push things forward. On that, we have obviously at INSEAD teaching and research, so I'll start a little bit with teaching. I'm teaching at INSEAD a PhD course on machine learning, which is new, it's going to start this year on machine learning, and an MBA course on data science for business that I've been doing that course for about 5 years now. That's a course which is all public. The whole course is on GitHub itself. The course website is on GitHub, open to everybody. I think it's somewhere on my website also if you are interested, but just send an email and I'll connect you. It has code, R code. First time I taught this was, I think 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago maximum, something like this. And the first time it was taught in a way that every single participant had an Amazon server, which was individual, where they were running R code that was common across everybody and was connected to GitHub. That was 4 or 5 years ago, and as you can imagine, it did not go very well back then. So
why do we have to do this?
Exactly. And then we went from why do we have to do this to that's the only thing I want to do. And now, I must confess, we are back to something more normal, which is a good thing, which is that's great to do. I see the value, and we need it, but we also need many other things. So what do we do in the class? In the class, the course I'm teaching, the MBA course, just to backtrack, I'm also working on executive sessions, executive courses. There, it's more overview of AI and machine learning and impact on business and on life in general, if you wish. So that's not coding, of course. So I am a strong believer, I'm a very strong believer that we need to have an understanding of the whole stack. When I say stack, I mean what you see here on this slide. Very boring slide, but at the same time, hopefully it gives the idea. What's the stack? It's a little bit like the engineering stack, right? The software stack. You go down from the wires or the assembly line all the way up to code and intelligence, if you wish, right? Well, the stack for us is a bit different. It's going from understanding the societal impact of AI, what it means for society, what it means for the world in general, for the global economy, for the markets, for everything. Then you go down to the industry. What's the impact of these technologies of machine learning and AI in the industry? Look at the automotive industry, healthcare, etc. You have to have a view of those. Then you have to have a view of what's the impact on the organization. It's still IT to some extent, and we know IT like, you know, any IT, even the IT of the ERPs of the 90s or the internet or whatever, it's all about organizational change. IT without change means basically just expensive organization without change. And then it's about project management. How do you manage machine learning and AI and data science projects? How do you run them? How do you organize a team? What kind of skills do you need? It's not common projects like any other project. These are very special projects. It's somewhere between art and science, research and technology. It's special. So you have to have a perspective on that. You have to have an understanding of what are the tools available, from deep learning to whatever else, right? What are the tools available and what they are doing and what business problems they can solve or general problems they can solve. And finally, I'm a strong believer that you also have to have some understanding and exposure to the lowest part of the stack, or I guess if you invert the stack, this is the highest part of the stack, depends on how you see the world, which is about programming. The devil, in my personal, my academic and non-academic experience, the devil is always in the details. And unless you see the details, you have a wrong sense of everything else in this stack. So at least that's what I'm trying to do in the class. That's how we approach AI and technology and machine learning at INSEAD. Make sure that there's a discussion at all levels. Pavel mentioned lots of very interesting and very valuable examples at the level of the industry and organization, but one has to see the whole thing, of course, right? So different classes focus on different aspects. Now that's extremely, in my opinion, very, very important to realize. So in the classes I'm doing and in the teaching in general for executive or MBA or even PhD, although it depends on the focus. The focus is different in different audiences. I always try to emphasize the importance of the stack and discuss about all levels that you see here. Although less so from society, of course, and more so from tools, programming, project, and organizations. Now, beyond teaching, there is also research. Of course, research can, again, be done at all these levels. And what's exciting, as Peter said, is to get research which is real research, meaning research which has impact in the world and is informed by the world. The way this is done is basically through interacting with you. So obviously, this is always valuable. We do fundamental research where we don't need interactions, right, of course, and that's always extremely valuable. Fundamental research is what changes the world also. But we also do a lot of research that is much more creative and much more valuable and much more impactful if you are involved. Now, what kind of research do we do in this space? First of all, we do research close to teaching, like case studies, as Pavel said. So anybody interested in exploring case studies, where basically we discuss together with you about how you approach AI and machine learning, and then we bring those lessons and exchanges to the classroom, where you can also join in the future in the classroom and discuss your experiences. In that case, we are available to discuss, and we are actually developing those cases as we speak for the different classes. Then we have research, which is on the impact of technologies like AI and machine learning at the industry and organizational level, as always, much like any technology, change management and marketing and HR and all that, operations. Then we have research, which is a little bit as follows. You can see it as follows. Most of the hot and impactful machine learning nowadays in the world is in engineering and science applications, computer vision, driverless cars, medicine, personalized medicine, DNA sequencing, and personalized medicine and bioinformatics, you name it, right? These technologies and these products are available because somebody has been working in research labs for the past 30 years developing those technologies. As I mentioned, I was doing my PhD on pedestrian detection, image recognition, and object detection in the 90s. By the way, parenthesis, I always like to say this story. My PhD was funded partly by Daimler Chrysler. And in the late 90s, I was really wondering why a car company would ever fund a computer vision project. Fast forward 20 years, and you see how long it takes. Now, what's not so available and mature yet is technologies, tools, and methods which can do what machine learning did to computer vision, but in business and social problems. I'll give you an example. Things I'm working on, for example, a lot, and I focus my energy and research these days on new methodologies and new machine learning methodologies and data analysis methodologies and AI methodologies and tools that can help us better understand human behavior from data that captures that behavior. New methodology that helps us better trade on the financial markets. New methodology that better helps us understand groups, how they work. Now, it may sound largely like statistics, and as you already sensed throughout the whole day probably, machine learning and statistics are cousins. Statistics, you can see it as the early 20th century machine learning. You don't want to run your car on an early 20th century technology, right? Machine learning is the early 21st century statistics, if you want to see it that way, right? Which sounds like a small thing, but it's not. It's as important as 100 years of technology. You can run a driverless car with machine learning, but not with statistics. It will crash. So with this in mind, just imagine, the kind of breakthroughs we see nowadays in driverless cars, in personalized medicine, in games, right, chess, Go, or whatever, all those breakthroughs driven by new tools and methodologies. Imagine similar breakthroughs and impact because of new tools and methodologies in solving business, economic, and social problems. This is research that we are developing. I'm focusing a lot on that one, as I mentioned myself, at INSEAD. And anybody interested in pushing the frontiers of research in those applications, please come and talk to us, of course. That's kind of hopefully gives you a sense of what we do and where things are going. I'll stop here.
All
yeah,
right.
1 minute. Okay, great.
All right, let's, any quick question on, yeah, right here. We go, mic right next to you, go.
Pavel, when does your course start?
That's an easy one, quick question, Christina.
So the course starts in the end of October, I believe that's P5, and is going to be taught again in the following year around May and June.
There we go. That's the MVP. And one last question up here, and then we're going to land this conference. Here we go.
Hello, very nice to see you again, Theos. So my question is how the education should change and how MBA education should change, taking into account all this evolution of AI.
I have no idea the answer, but I can tell you an opinion, which actually is exactly on this slide. I think people have to be aware of everything from the bird's eye view of the impact of what they do on the world to the details that matter to make things work or fail. So it's a more round and general perspective, ranging from technical to non-technical aspects. I think that's really important. And of course, as it was said before, there are also skills which MBAs already develop, which are around the soft skills, right? So obviously, I don't know if this answered the question, but
That's okay. We're going to need to wrap up, so I'll end on that as well, and pick up on what Theo said, which is again, especially a business school is around developing very powerful generalists, and I like this notion of the stack, but also what Malika was saying about wow, there's some changes down at the bottom here, which have big impacts up ahead. And I really think it is a key thing where people who have the ability and the perspective to try and shape the evolution of this need to stand up. And like we've heard from a few speakers, we have to, at the end of the day, make what's going to happen with the technology. And I guess the commitment on the school's part, the reason we're doing things like this is to try and be part of that conversation. And again, like in true sort of digital approach is we don't have the answer. We're trying different things. This was one experiment. It started actually with a smaller conference in Singapore. A bunch of students put up an AI topic, and tons of people showed up. So we said, okay, let's bounce that over to France and sort of take it to the next level. But you'll see us do other things. For those who are out in Singapore in November, we're trying just a quick pop-up, like 2-day educational program on the topic. And really just to remember, INSEAD has always been something that's co-created by the students, by the faculty, by the alumni. And I think really just for myself and Ilian, we see digital has always, has become one of the big issues. I think as we heard today, machine learning only fuels that. Similar in many ways. We heard lots of discussions about classic things, about how it's about consumer focus. It's about how building organizations get value from technology. But then again, we also heard ways in which machine learning is different. I don't know if you picked it up, but one of the big drum rolls has been, because it's all about software, you need to be agile, and suddenly you say, actually, there's a new whole approach to software, and there's a whole different set of things you need to be successful. Anyway, we need to be part of those conversations, both at the social level, but also just at the business level. What does digital transformation mean in 2018, 2019 is actually maybe not exactly what it meant 3 or 4 years ago. So I now need to, first of all, thank Pavel and Theos. Thank you for coming out.